I want to thank you for the honor of allowing me to present the Philip Burton Public Service Award to the transcendent Elizabeth Edwards.
I'm very impressed with Warren, who had little bitty writing. I know he's a couple of years older than I am, and I could not read that little writing. Thank you. I am deeply honored. I accept this award only as a representative of thousands of men and women across this country who decide to stand up rather than to lay down when confronted with a diagnosis such as the one that John and I received. Many of those people do not have the health care benefits that I enjoy. Most of them do not have the support that I have, and almost none of them get to stand in the warm, affirming light in which I stand tonight. With less armor than I have, they fight too. So this award is for them, and I am humbled to accept it on behalf of my brothers and sisters. And I'm honored, in particular, to participate in any dinner in which the phrase "courage, not compromise" is repeated. Philip Burton, it's great to be in the presence of John, but Philip Burton, for whom this award is named, was willing to accept whatever criticism came his way in order to build a legacy of uncompromising advocacy for the disenfranchised. He stands in such stark contrast to so many of the political models we have around us today. We live in a society where compromise is even applauded. Now, in some instances, when it accomplishes a goal without abandoning a principle or without abandoning the people for whom the principle was meant to benefit, I suppose compromise can be applauded. But compromise today is too often applauded simply for itself. Compromise, it's usually described as consensus rather than capitulation, has become a goal. And the cost of compromise to principles into real lives, well, that doesn't seem to matter. Except, as that video so wonderfully described, it matters here with you. In healthcare and energy and the financing of elections and the war in Iraq, it does matter. This organization understands that the way to build a fair and just society is not through baby steps, not through concession or incremental solutions, but with big ideas and with an obvious backbone to match. It's precisely because I believe that the only way to achieve the change we so desperately need is through that backbone and the big ideas that John and I made the decision, even in the face of a pretty depressing medical diagnosis, to continue to speak out. Not for him, and certainly not for me, but for the principles, and more importantly, for those people who need someone to stand up for them without compromise. Those who need a champion cannot afford compromise. In the face of forces that are powerful, persistent, and pernicious, and greedy. I'm reminded of what happened to me one Sunday, I'm going to show my age, in 1956, when my family was on the way to Sunday school. My father was stationed at the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida. The church was kind of across the street. Before we left for Sunday school, my brother, my sister, and I were each given our allowance. 1956, a dime, and our money for the offering plate, also a dime. My younger sister, who was then 5, took the 2 dimes as we crossed the street and did what children did and shook them in her hands as she walked. As we stepped up on the curb, though, one of the dimes fell out, rolled down the curb, and then down a drain. At 5 years old, she didn't miss a beat. She said, "There goes the Lord's dime." Now, we forgive a 5-year-old who could have reasonably believed that God had a much better chance of getting the dime than she did. But also we forgive her because she's 5. She couldn't know that that dime was meant to join other dimes and buy breakfast for a needy child in Jacksonville or a blanket for a mother in Uganda. But it isn't just 5-year-olds, is it? And it isn't just dimes. We don't have universal health care in this country because powerful corporations who profit from health care beat us. The pharmaceutical companies stole our tax money when they successfully lobbied, maybe the better words are bullied and threatened, their way into protecting their industry from that old free market practice of bargaining for the best price. And our tax money was stolen too by Bechtel and Halliburton and a handful of connected corporations who sought and were awarded no-bid contracts in Iraq from an administration that has taken very good care of its friends and its financial supporters while it has failed to protect the most needy among us, closing child care programs, cutting medical research grants, charging veterans enrollment fees to go to VA hospitals, ignoring the poor, and exploiting the immigrant. We have a Supreme Court that could look blatant sex discrimination just last week in the face and with a wink protect the employer from any more than the cost of 6 months of its conduct. But as a nation, apparently, we shrug. We let them keep their dimes, or in the real world, their billions, and we promise to fight tomorrow. Well, I don't know how many tomorrows I have. None of us do, really. I want to fight now. I need to fight now, and I am buoyed by the fact that you are fighting now. Fighting for the voiceless that has honestly become the cause of John's life and mine in the courtrooms of North Carolina when we were practicing there, it seems like 100 years ago. The legion of well-paid lawyers were on the other side. I know a lot of people in this room know what that looks like. Insurance companies in John's case, corporations in mine. We fought to make sure the little guy had a chance. In the Senate halls, often crawling with lobbyists, John kept his hands in his pockets and always out of the lobbyists' pockets, never once taking a single dime of Washington lobbyists' money, and fought, for example, against what they wanted for a patient's Bill of Rights, so that nationally we could accomplish some of what you've accomplished for and fought for here in California, a fairer deal from HMOs. And now in town halls and living rooms across America, we continue that fight. And as we do, you know, oddly, it doesn't seem political. I live at an intersection of politics and public service. Public service is all about action. This is what's so amazing about that video we just saw. You're not a successful public servant unless your actions meet the public's needs. Success in politics doesn't have the same standard. Success in politics is personal. Was the candidate elected? That's it. Frankly, that success is empty unless it is married to a greater goal. I know that I would not have made the decision about continuing campaigning for change if it was about purely personal political success. At the end of our lives, we will not be judged by what the highest office was that we attained in our lifetime. If that were true, the current president would hold as much esteem as Franklin Roosevelt in our country or Nelson Mandela in his. That cannot be the case. We will each be judged by the mark we left on the lives of others. So a campaign about us, well, for me, honestly, what would be the point? I chose to campaign only because it is about a woman in Cleveland last year who came up to me and whispered in my ear, "I am really afraid because I found a lump in my breast and I can't go to the doctor. I have no insurance." It's about Beverly in Detroit who broke down, unable even to speak, when she said she couldn't sleep, so afraid was she for the life of her son, who was serving in Iraq. It's about Mary in Cedar Rapids, who at 75 went back to work because she couldn't pay for prescription drugs that she could have afforded if she had lived in Canada. The rationale for a political race has to be something greater than the candidate. The sentence, "Joe Smith wants to be president because Joe Smith believes in blank," has to be completed by something other than Joe Smith's own name.